finally, after all this time, have some sort of resolution to the Raja Jackson Psycho Stew beating case, with him recently pleading no contest to one felony count of battery with serious bodily injury at a preliminary hearing yesterday. Now, Raja also admitted two special allegations as well, including personal infliction of great bodily injury and engaging in violent conduct. Yes, Raja Jackson will receive prison time, and no, it is nowhere near enough. It's 90 days. According to a spokesman for the District Attorney's Office told the Post, 3 months, that's it. That's not exactly it, in fairness. Raja Jackson's full punishment is an anticipated, quote, sentence of 90 days actual county jail, restitution of $81,703.38, and 2 years formal probation. So that's something. Anyway, here's the images. This was first reported by the New York Post yesterday, by the way. Not really much else to it apart from just the images. I might as well just leave them up for a couple more seconds. So it's something, but with the level of brutality, it's barely anything in the grand scheme of things, and quite frankly, it's pretty disgraceful that somebody can purposely knock somebody out with a slam, that they are trained to do this as well, and then rain down over 20 punches, I believe it was, on somebody's unconscious head, and then not be charged for attempted murder. Let's not get not even get like at least a couple of years hard time, at least that, considering everything from the act itself to the planning of said act was all caught on camera and live streamed for the world to see, because Raja Jackson is a brain dead imbecile. Now, to remind you all of the situation and talk further on Psycho Stew's injuries that have retired him from wrestling forever, by the way, it seems this is what has happened. Rikishi and Black Pearl's wrestling school, Nox Pro. As a side note to Nox Pro, by the way, Rikishi just recently, very recently, divorced himself from the school, and he is no longer affiliated with Nox Pro, quite possibly so he can dedicate himself full-time to complaining about how Jey Uso is not getting pushed enough in WWE. Anyway, Raja Jackson, son of Rampage Jackson, was invited to Nox Pro backstage for reasons we'll get into in a minute. Psycho Stew gave this Raja clown a working punch with an empty beer can in the mistaken assumption that he was also a wrestler and he'd find it funny, whatever. And when Stu was put straight, he immediately apologised many times, but Raja would not accept the apology or shake his hand. Then Black Pearl told Raja he could be in the ring during a battle royal during the main event or whatever it is on the show that night. And it's then explained by Raja's buddy AJ Manor, another wrestler on the show, to Raja that he can get a receipt on Stu in the ring. Raja promptly, when this was explained to him, shakes Stu's hand, and then they part ways, making Stu think he had accepted the apology, but really, in Raja's Swiss cheese brain, he was going to hurt him for real, while Stu was giving Raja his body without resistance. Now, Raja spends 2 hours streaming on Kick, claiming he is going to hurt Stu for real. A whole 2 hours of this, by the way, with this AJ Manor guy as well, who I think was the guy who invited Raja in the first place. I think I'm right in saying that. And then also winding him up further. There was later a theory, I don't remember, it's so long ago if this was actually confirmed or not, that there was actually a potential for all of this to be set up way in advance, because this AJ and Stu guy had pre-existing beef before any of this happened. Then, you know, AJ, I guess, invites this psycho down, and there you go. Anyway, Rampage Jackson, the father, also called Raja to make fun of him about being beaten up by a bunch of guys in tights. For somebody who's emotionally unstable and pretty much brain dead as well, all this further wound up Raja. All on the stream, by the way. Then the attack happens. Raja's music hits. He leaps into the ring and straight to Stu. He double legs him MMA style, dumps him on top of his head hard onto the canvas, knocks Stu out immediately, and then he climbs onto Stu, full mount position, rains punches to his unconscious head, over 20 in all, 21 I think it was. Of all people, a young lad who was, 17 or something like that. He was really young. He was the one to screw up his courage and actually help, while loads of other people, including the referee, are all just standing there dribbling. And essentially, Stu ends up unconscious for a prolonged period of time. Injuries include possible brain injury, broken bones in his face. I should actually, just before I say it, there was another guy, and I lost the name off my mind. He was the guy who actually kind of like pinned Raja, but he ran from the back while loads of people around ringside not doing anything, I should say. This other dude actually came in and actually helped. Anyway, Stu ends up unconscious for a prolonged period of time. Injuries include possible brain injury, broken bones in his face, multiple teeth knocked out. He was choking on his own blood and teeth, said one person. He had to be taken to critical care, where he stayed for a good while, and further bouts of memory loss followed, and basically it was a real savage beating that Stu was lucky to recover from, as well as he did. Once again, Raja Jackson got 90 days for this. Now, normally Californian state laws, that it's a felony battery, it carries a maximum 4-year prison sentence, but then there are sentence enhancers in this particular case. Quote, great bodily injury that could see Raja Jackson, or could have seen him, behind bars for up to 7 years, plus another 6 months if he was guilty of misdemeanor battery as well. So 7.5 years was the maximum he could have, and some would argue should have got. Realistically, though, Raja Jackson should have been sentenced to at least a few years in prison for this beating anyway, in my opinion, especially because after he was arrested and subsequently bailed for $50,000, he surprisingly pled not guilty to all this as well. Raja then started trying to lay some bullshit defense early on, claiming he'd suffered a concussion several days earlier. But in that case, why would he have agreed to go in the ring and do anything physical if he had a concussion? Now, it was all a load of crap, as I'm sure you'll probably know, whether he had a concussion or not. And I'm sure his dad, Rampage, was glad he saved up the bail money for his loser kid, while his other kids got money for their college educations. But once again, Stu never pressed charges here. He just kind of wanted to forget about it, I guess. And the charges were brought forth by the state. Also, making me think this was a complete slam dunk, and also highlighting the severity of this incident. Now, all I'm thinking now is that Raja's rich daddy got Saul Goodman or someone like that to represent this turd, and justice was just not meted out whatsoever. He cut an unbelievable deal for his clients. Now, that is 90 days in the fine or whatever. That is, I'm sure, not satisfying a conclusion to most watching this case unfurl over the last... God, was it over a year ago? I mean, I'm trying to remember. Was it like January last year or something? It was going for a long time. Anyway, the true travesty of this case, of all this, is that while Stu had been bludgeoned half to death by some maniac in the middle of the ring when he wasn't expecting it and couldn't defend himself, while Raja was being dragged off Stu's lifeless body, another wrestler comes in and pins Stu's shoulders to the fucking mat, and the referee counts it as well, and he stood there the entire time. Once again, I would have blacklisted everybody from that school as well, apart from the guy who actually ran in and helped. That, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name at the moment, but he was kind of the real hero of this whole situation. That was almost as egregious as the assault, especially because Stu is possibly choking, has blood coming out of his ears, and apparently Knox Pro, which apparently also must be one of the worst wrestling schools ever, are teaching their students to get their shit in no matter what. They were formerly a WWE ID affiliated school. They, of course, lost their affiliation after the incident. Now, everything else that followed, there was some wrestlers who've got podcasts. You don't need a license to have a podcast, but maybe you should do. And supposed MMA analysts as well were bending over backwards, it seemed, to make it seem like poor little Raja was confused, maybe, or he didn't know what a receipt was, or that he didn't know if it was real or not, or that Psycho Stu deserves to get beaten half to death for a miscommunication he immediately apologised for. Someone from Knox Pro also claimed that the school was telling its students and everybody affiliated with the school to not talk to police. So that's the story. Raja Jackson, from what I characterise as an attempted murder, or should have been that charge anyway, is most likely getting 90 days jail time. He will be sentenced in June, by the way. It's going to be most likely 90 days jail, a sizable fine that his dad will probably pay for, and that's it. So that's the story. That is the update. I don't expect I'm ever going to do another video on this again, because the sentence looks to be that he's not actually been sentenced. Just to clarify this, a spokesman said that is going to be the likely outcome. If it's something wildly different, I'm sure I'll do another video on it, but this pretty much seems the end of the road of the Raja Jackson and Psycho Stu case, as it were, and that's pretty much it. I will potentially see you tomorrow for another video. If there is some news worth talking about, I will see you soon.
Don't you dare.
Here we go.
No.
It's on now.
No.
Tag
No.
both Thea and Charlie.
No.
Comment on their Instagram stuff. Hashtag let it poof.
Oh my god. That sounds like the most wrong.
No, that's because
its Q1 2026 investors call and discussed in it several issues relating to fan complaints as well as logistical issues for WWE and UFC as well of course as touting all the success TKO has achieved and specifically WWE has achieved in the first few months of the year. Suffice to say that the fan criticisms were addressed in just about as condescending and dismissive a way as possible, but we will get to that in a couple of minutes. First up, what was addressed was the Saudi Arabia situation. As I'm sure you will all know, the US and Iran and Israel and Lebanon and whoever else are having a little bit of a tiff down there in the old Middle East once again. Will they ever get along? But that's causing a huge number of issues regarding flights and safety as citizens and visitors alike in neighbouring states. Now, the original plan was for WWE to go to Saudi Arabia this June 23rd in Riyadh for the WWE Night of Champions PLE. But while SummerSlam and Money in the Bank were booked way in advance and announced way in advance, it took TKO up until April 23rd to officially put in the books that Night of Champions was indeed going ahead. Despite all the security concerns that there was then and still is now. And also more than the security concerns are, of course, the economic concerns. Roman Reigns got out of that show very, very early, supposedly, by the way, which is why he's been taken off of all the June shows leading up to Night of Champions despite being the champion. Anyway, TKO recently doubled down on the whole Saudi commitment despite local tension, saying that there were going to be no less than 8, I think, TKO shows taking place in Saudi Arabia, or like satellite kind of places as well, including Night of Champions, along with the UFC Fight Night in Azerbaijan on this same night. That's going to be featuring Rafael Fiziev, I believe they pronounce it, versus Manuel Torres. Now, look, you've got to keep on cashing those $50 million checks, I get that, while cutting WWE talent pay in half, I guess. But anyway, another interesting tidbit is TKO's Mark Shapiro assuring investors in response to the Saudi Sports Authority pulling funding from Live Golf. Here's the quote. Following the news of PIF withdrawing its funding in Live Golf, our partners in Saudi Arabia have confirmed that will not be the case with TKO. Their commitment to our properties in 2026 and beyond is unwavering. I'm sure secretly TKO are actually pretty worried about this, and I guess investors would see the whole Live Golf situation and be worried as well, which so I'm not surprised why Mark Shapiro has come out so strong with that statement to assure the investors. But this does go to show that Saudi Arabia, it may well be a near bottomless money pit, but even they have their limits if they don't see their returns on their investments, at least at some point. Just to explain quickly, if you don't know, for sports fans, I'm sure many of you will be aware of the breakaway golf league funded by the Saudis called Live Golf, which promised higher pay, quicker games, no cuts and whatnot for the players. But those changes largely benefited the players, not the fans. Essentially, the Saudis poured $5 billion plus into Live Golf. They overpaid established names, big prize pots, etc., to form this rebel league to challenge the supremacy of the PGA, only to find out that they couldn't upend the PGA's tradition and prestige and world tournament rankings, eligible tournaments, sponsors, and of course established broadcast rights. And how can we also forget the sports washing allegations as well, that still don't set well with most. Now, the only thing Live Golf really achieved was forcing the PGA to adapt in regards to player equity and higher purses, and to create more signature events as well. So essentially, the Saudi Arabians just spent $5 billion doing the players a favour. Now, back to WWE. More specifically, the ticket sales performance of WWE's WrestleMania 42 two-night event a couple of weeks ago. Yes, they did fudge the numbers a little bit, adding a good few thousand onto Sunday's event as well, best we can tell compared to the numbers from WrestleTix, but they still shifted over 100,000 tickets when all was said and done. Mark Shapiro addressed concerns in the same investor call that the same venue, running the same venue for back-to-back WrestleManias meant that WrestleMania 42 could be seen as a disappointment. Sorry, a delivery guy turned up at the door then. Quote, "We are not concerned about the ticket performances whatsoever. is it was unrealistic to expect year 2 growth in Las Vegas, he said. Some of this writing was also from Post Wrestling, by the way. The event drew more than 106,000 fans across 2 nights, so they claim, and delivered financial incentives, a package economics, quote, meaningfully ahead of last year, according to Shapiro. He described it as, quote, still one of the highest gates in WWE history, and said it easily outperformed anywhere else we could have had it staged, could have staged it. Well, no, actually, if it was Saudi Arabia, you probably would have got a lot more. To be honest, you might have got more in Wembley, really. I think a lot more people would have actually turned up to it to offset maybe lower ticket prices. But anyway, if we're throwing in the rights fee, Saudi Arabia would have absolutely been the best place to hold it, because between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania as a 2-show package, that is $300 million in fees which TKO have collected for that, which is considerably more than the $7 million or so dollars that Las Vegas paid them this year. Now, that also doesn't count, the $50 million they get for every single PLA that isn't those, WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble as well. So, look, I mean, run Saudi more if money's just the bottom line here. To have every show in Saudi Arabia, why not? But it is true that WrestleMania 42, from what Mark Shapiro said before, is going to be one of the top grossing events in WWE history. But make no mistake about it, WWE and TKO were gravely concerned over tickets not selling. They really were. Where Mark Shapiro said, they're not concerned. Yeah, they were. That's why they had multi-departmental meetings about it, trying to put their heads together and figure out how to get more tickets sold. None of them came up with the idea of having more exciting TV to build to WrestleMania, of course. It was all briefly attempting a blackout in Las Vegas to stop people from watching the shows in public unless you bought tickets to the show itself, or any kind of discount or sale that they ran that seemed to be like a dozen of them in different places, to then actually having Pat McAfee himself, the supposed biggest heel in the company at that time, to arrange a discount for the fans for the Saturday show only live on SmackDown. Yes, WWE and TKO were very concerned. Anyway, they were also probably concerned that they have, quote, only sold a little over 12,000 tickets for WWE's Backlash PLE this weekend. I say only, because it's still, a huge amount of people going. But the fact is that they've just opened up a load more tiers, and I think like the capacity of the building is more like 18,000. Well, I think it's in Tampa, actually. I was going to say I didn't know where it was, but I do. So all those discounts for WrestleMania, look, if this is all that's happened, I've said this before, all that those discounts did, not only on WrestleMania, but every Raw and every SmackDown leading up to it, seemingly as well, has taught the fans that, number one, WWE are not going to get close to selling out on the first day, and two, WWE will drop prices the closer they get to the show date. So all they have done is just taught the fans their tricks, and now they're wise to them. Now, what it hasn't taught WWE and TKO, though, these comparative struggles of selling tickets, because they're still huge numbers, is that they need more compelling storylines and more dynamic television to hook in the viewers, and WWE also hasn't learned that forcing some established WWE fan favourites to take a 50% pay cut paints WWE in a horrible light and makes it a little harder for fans to want to support the product, especially considering that TKO announced just before this call, TKO announced a reported $1.6 billion in revenue in the first quarter of 2026, which is a 26% year-on-year increase across its businesses. And also, one more thing I forgot to add before, lower the ticket prices. That really would help. Anyway, here's something else. UFC lost a ton of money. Was it like nearly $400 million or something like that for paying out fighters for the Kung Lee lawsuit as part of the settlement? And TKO are now using the success of WWE, and even more so On Location, that's TKO's like ticket division, to make up the shortfall. Despite all this, TKO is still running UFC Freedom 250, by the way, which is a free show in the grounds of the White House on June 14th, where they expect to lose approximately $30 million. Mark Shapiro then claimed it was a loss leader for marketing purposes. It's really for their own clout. Anyway, then we get to the fan criticism bit. This is also from Post Wrestling. Brandon Ross of Lightshed Partners raised the subject of fan backlash over sponsorship saturation, ticket pricing at WWE events, and Shapiro gave a lengthy response. But here's some of the quotes to condense it down for you. Quote, "We take any and all feedback, especially from our core fan base, extremely serious." He then framed the issue as universal across live entertainment with tickets anyway, comparing it to the rising of movie theatre prices, NBA jersey patches, and naming rights at Dodgers Stadium. Quote again, or near quote again, on WWE specifically, Shapiro said the company is, quote, "truly new to commercial integration and sponsorship," and acknowledged there had been trial and error. Quote again, "We've pushed some boundaries with various events. We've leaned in. With others, we've pulled back." I'd love to know what they pulled back on. I mean, they just... Well, we were going to have 2 billionaires sat at the commentary desk for Backlash, but now we're just going to pull it back to 1 again. I don't know. Just regarding that, yes, people are still complaining about the ridiculous commercialization of the products, and rightly so, I think, because it's something whatever soul WWE had left in its product, especially the Slim Jim tables, because it's not tables for violence's sake, it's tables for... They've got to check so many boxes. We've got to use 3 tables this week. Here you go. It's tables for advertising purposes only and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it just... You know the story. We've been going on about it since it was introduced. It's just eye-rolling every time. And it takes away the impact, the supposed dread and danger of having a table on every single show in the first place with advertising hoardings all over it. But there's also every match being sponsored and 48 million adverts in every show. That's why we can only have 4 matches on a 3-hour show or 2.5-hour show. Although, I will say, Backlash does have 5 matches, and so did Raw, amazingly. But anyway. And then there's also the inviting of attention-starved billionaires to sit at the commentary desk for an extra $50,000. So I believe I read somewhere that was reported that's how much that guy spent extra on top of his front row ticket. But anyway, the people who are complaining about the rising movie ticket prices are doing it for the same reasons that the wrestling fans are complaining about the WWE ticket prices. They're too high. They're, for everybody looking from the outside in, and I'm sure probably from the inside out, they've just been artificially inflated because they think they can get away with it. It's not because operating costs are so much higher, especially for TKO, who are making record profits year on year. And they're touting it. This is the quarterly report. But as far as the tickets being too high, look at the Backlash ticket sales, if you don't believe me. I think if they were more reasonable, I don't think it would have been a problem to have sold 16,000, 17,000 by this point. Anyway, but it's the fan complaints that we have to mention. Boy, were they brushed off in a hurry, let me tell you. Nick Khan has already says he pays no attention to fan complaints. Triple H says fans would, pretty much just quote, "fuck off, fans," because he doesn't want to hear any complaining. Yet he creates Pat McAfee, a character entirely based off of what WWE thinks the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, are saying and want to see, and then getting that entire message completely muddled up in the process and having it come from the wrong messenger. But anyway, more stuff. Shapiro maintained that our product comes first. And pointed to record attendance, viewership, and engagement figures as evidence that the audience remains resilient. Quote again, "doesn't mean we can do whatever we want to do. Absolutely not. Quite the contrary." This is weird because WWE have got better attendance in 2025 as well, and they are already seeing a dip in attendance into 2026. But the problem here is this, is that when you're hot, you can make all sorts of mistakes and the fans, the audience will forgive you. You won't take a financial hit. You won't even notice at the time, maybe. But if you keep at it long enough and you cool off your own business with decisions that fans continually are rejected or find for one reason or another objectionable or unentertaining or whatever it might be, there's very little that companies
Mother. I just wanna fuck her. Do you understand me? Fuck my mother, or I will fucking fuck you. Fuck. Hey. Yes. Dresden.